Welcome to another exciting episode of Design Dialogues by Mu.S.Ex, that is Musing Spatial Experiences. We are exploring architectural careers in futurist India and shifting design perspectives. On today's episode, we have an exciting, enriching conversation curated for you. Joining us in this dialogue, we have a very expert and a very revered professional from the field, that is architect Chitra Vishwanath. Welcome.
Hi.
It's lovely to have you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Words cannot do enough justice to her work. If I were to briefly introduce you to her work, she is the managing director of Biome Solutions, one of the leading firms exploring sustainable architecture in India and beyond. And all of this and more curated her into the force that she is now in the industry. It's not just mainstream architecture. She's doing so much beyond it. At Biome Solutions, which is a multidisciplinary firm, they look at approaches which highlight and imbibe ecological architecture and intelligent water and sanitation solutions. Through their work, the challenge that they create to challenge the norm, and they demonstrate that ecological design and sustainable and mindful design can really replace the robotic attitudes we have towards architectural designs today. Welcome to the conversation, ma'am.
So, thank you, Devika, and thank you, Nikita, for pursuing me for so long. And I'm extremely sorry for the delays.
So, I would like to dive into the definitions of sustainability, what it means for different architects, what it means for different professionals, and how it is defined in the context of architectural pedagogy, how that translates into several very varied definitions for young professionals, and how the definitions get lost for so many of us architects.
Yeah, so I have a beef with this word sustainability itself.
Okay.
Because what I say, it's a shifting goalpost. For different people, it's a different limit.
Correct.
Okay. So I prefer using the word ecological rather than sustainable at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Probably it's sustainable for me to fly budget airline in what do you call economy. Yeah, but for some, and I really know the taxi driver who brings me to there can be something which is very unaffordable.
Okay.
Yeah, but let's look at the way we categorize architecture into, again, these labels of sustainable and unsustainable. I think it's unfair because what it does, it tends to look at the surface of it. It's not going deep. It's not questioning deeply. And that's a very important factor now. It is not critically looking at why a certain building or a certain design is the way it is. What are the various challenges the designer faced? What are the various aspirations the designer is bringing into the structure, as well as why the certain decisions are taken. Whereas we tend to then see that structure and say, this is unsustainable because it has glass. Let's take the example of glass, the way we use it. Let's say we're using, and especially let's take the context of Bangalore. People say, such a lovely weather, but the buildings have glass. Why can't they be ventilated, naturally ventilated and naturally lit? Well, with glass, yeah, they're doing a bit of naturally lit interiors, but this is in an economy which is growing. We have made the same road 3 times in Bangalore because the traffic has increased every 5-10 years. So we are making the cities louder, noisier, dustier. Will you be able to work inside that space? To be able to work inside that space, I have to close out the noise and the dust. But I want to bring the light inside. What's the material? It's glass. Now I put the glass and I'm not getting the air, I'm not getting the temperature comfort, and for that I have to put an AC. But now many people will demonize that building. Now, if that building was made, let's say, with being climatically suitable, okay, and so made with thick walls, and so it will not be very hot, and various other things. You do insulations on the roof, insulation on the wall, and everything. It has more embodied energy than a building which should have been done conventionally, but was using the operational energy of an HVAC system. So these are different contrasts which we're going to be living with, and I think that's the beauty of this time. These are the challenges of our time, and where we need to break out of perceptions and, like the introduction says, get to be intelligent, and what we say is to be agile in terms of what solutions we bring in. Because if we make a climate sensitive building with lots of insulation, its whole lifetime embodied energy will never be compensated through its lifetime. It will still be higher than a conventional in a building which would have used an air conditioning system. So how do you design is a huge wicked problem which every architect is confronting, and every architect is, I would say, serious architecture. Every architect is trying to bring out what would be the right thing for the future. So I am now in a state where I say, stop this label of sustainable. And I would really like to be divested of this label. Importance is that the future is of conversation, and future is of ideas.
Yeah.
Not the object, not the product which you're seeing. The product which you're seeing now is transient. It's already old. It's conceptualized, say 6 months back, it's happening, but it's probably already old.
It birthed from an idea.
Yeah, it worked from an idea. Now that product is a product of that time and that situation. And that may not remain in present times for more than 10 years. Forget 10 years, it may not remain, even in certain cases, 5 years, because things change. So we have to stop this label.
Okay. I'll try. I'll try hard.
So now that is the challenge to you.
It is. I need a moment to take that challenge. And so
I hope that's okay with you.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. In the spirit of that challenge, let's shift the conversation to pedagogy then, because I feel like pedagogy is a term you can't avoid. We have to have that conversation. Sustainable architecture, the way it is introduced in colleges right now, it's very, very superficial in the sense that you can't say that you taught sustainable architecture from a 5-day elective which only gave 2 hours per day. How does that begin to justify? After so many years of experience, you are now finding yourself cancelling out the definition of it. Correct? So how are students going to feel justified of learning sustainable architecture?
So I'm not cancelling out.
Questioning it.
No questioning out. I had been burdened with that
term.
Yeah. Okay. I never asked for it, so I was burdened, and I still go by it, and I still kind of, in all the places, I still question that term itself. No? So that's how we started. I would really request that the colleges don't make it a special subject, but it happens in every bit of teaching.
Mindfulness.
And yeah, the complete mindfulness in every subject it teaches. And that is something going to be a little challenging right now. And I'm empathetic to it because we have many colleges, we have many students. We don't have enough what we call as people with experience teaching. They're young people who are teaching. And they are going to teach what they've learned.
But
The book learning, yeah.
sorry, I mean, I may be overstepping here a bit, but as a student, I feel like it's not my concern that your teachers are young. It's not my concern
It's not your concern.
It's not my concern. So why am I suffering? Why am I not being taught architectural, sustainable architecture in the most comprehensive way? I get it. I want to be empathetic to it, but I also want to be empathetic to the fact that I am giving my best. I'm paying the amount that it takes to take the training.
Rekha, you are taught climatic design.
Yeah.
I don't know, in third, fourth terms. You would have
Third.
studied Konisberger, the sun path and other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, why are you not putting that in your design? Why are you waiting for somebody to say that would come in a sustainable design?
Because
as a student.
Okay, as a student, we are motivated to do it from a place of earning those marks. As a professional, when I take that design and when I talk about sun path, my boss wants to kick me out of the meeting room because they want to do robotic work. They want to take a design, they want to implement it, mechanize the process, repeat it, take that same thing out of context and put it in a different context. I think that is something that Nikita faced. It's not similar, but quite similar actually. The founder of this company.
But one more thing. The climatic design that you taught, second year is when I was introduced to it. Third year, fourth year, fifth year, whenever you try to implement it, it's disregarded by the other professors. It's like the professors have a fight amongst themselves and there's some issues there which are very obviously personal issues, and as a result of personal issues, it's like, oh, that subject is not important, don't get into this subject. Oh, services is not important, you focus on design. Oh, design is not important, you don't get into resources. Why? It's the same building. Today when I'm teaching at LSR, we're trying to implement a holistic design where we say, you do everything for that one project. You talk to me architectural psychology, you talk to me about the space, the experience of the space of the same project, you talk to me about the WD and the services of the same project, you talk to me about the landscape of the same project, and different faculty consider the different areas of the same expertise, but it's the one project that the child designs the entire semester. And this I think is still better than what a lot of other colleges are doing. Other colleges are still implementing different design projects for different subjects because the professors can't work together.
I'm so happy to hear that because that's what whenever we taught, we've been trying to get it together. But yes, there are certain egos and people are not confident to be able to work with each other and to bring in their ideas. Like I remember in one college I was teaching, get that structural engineer into the design of it, and the structural engineer had very limited knowledge of structures. Yeah? So we have these failings in all the various subject matter experts. Okay, what I see as architects, we have to become, I call it agile generalists. We have to be very smart. So that's what Quentin Tarantino says. It's very interesting quote. Saw it on Instagram. But he says that you don't have to be a set designer. You don't have to be a costume designer. You don't have to be a photographer. You don't have to be a scene designer, any of that. You have to know what you expect in the movie. And you have to be able to direct. So I think in the whole curriculum, we have to make students to be curious. And that is it's a societal dilemma. Like you said, you're looking at marks.
Yeah. I was.
So, look, you are, and it's natural. I'm not saying that, there's anything wrong. Yeah, because you have been kind of conditioned by the society. In the 10th standard, in the 12th standard, everything is marks. The family wants you to have marks. The society wants it looks at you with that lens. And it is never questioning that lens itself. And when you come out into a course which is, which ideally should not be time bound, it ideally should not be,
Marks bound.
marks bound, but something which makes you curious and instills passion.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if as a person you can break out of it, it changes the way you look at it. And then it doesn't matter if that professor is listening to you or not, because you have now the possibility through your own, you have softwares, you don't have to do the legwork like if you were using the sun path, but you can say that with this decision, it will be cooler. This is where I should put windows. This is where I should get light. And if you do that, you will have the first satisfaction. And it is important that you kind of grade yourself in your parameters, not the parameters
set by
established by others.
So you put a lot of emphasis on curiosity. So I'm just going to be straightforward with something that I've been curious about. Are all materials sustainable, or can we use materials sustainably?
Now, it's extremely contextual.
Okay.
What is one using? It will be, I'll tell you, it will be crazy and stupid if I use earth in an ICU. Okay, where there is a level of hygiene required. But if I'm going to use aluminum cladded building of let's say a hut, where in a village in Madhya Pradesh, where I could use the skills from the locals, that would be unfair. So we've done a kind of housing project in Coonoor, and it was steeply sloping land. The client had appointed us because we build with earth. And when I saw the land, I said, no, we can't build with earth because the land is not made for that. First of all, I can't get soil at the site, which is what we talk about. If I take soil from below my feet, that's the best earth to be used. And there are Tamil Nadu compulsions of bylaws that you can't transport earth. So we built everything in concrete. But we designed in such a way that the water flows and it doesn't create landslide. So the design of the structure intelligent, and we harvested all the water only because if we allow the water to flow, because there will be more water because of structure, that it will create issues with the landslides and stuff. So you have to be again and again coming to the fact that you have to be an agile generalist.
I love that term.
You work it that way. So
yeah,
so every material can be, and I think a lot of it, plastic as a future material, because there's so much plastic, it will almost become an ore for future.
But like you talk about the consumption of resources, if controlled and directed in a mindful approach through intelligent solution building processes. Now, the idea of sustainable design is not just designing sustainably, but to design buildings that function sustainably. So, it brings me to the question where designers are being told that the process of designing has to be sustainable. Fair. What happens after you design? Are your buildings functioning in a manner where the electricity is minimized, the use of electricity is minimized? It's just the beginning. There are so many things about a building that needs to function sustainably. You can't pat your back at designing sustainably if the building is not ending up functioning sustainably. Correct? So I don't know how much institutions or organizations like LEED and GRIHA monitor all of these things. But I do know that in the learnings that I could accumulate through my seniors, through the educators, everyone is putting emphasis on designing sustainably and then vanishing from the site. What is the building doing after it? Is it functioning sustainably?
So is the designer responsible for the functioning of the building?
Yes, if the intelligent solutions are integrated during the design processes, which is sustainable, then my building will function sustainably even if I vanish from the spot.
So what do you say should be the ideal temperature if I'm not having HVAC between the difference in temperature between outside and inside?
Body, the ideal temperature is
35.
22 to 24 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one, but ideal it says is that you'll feel comfort when the difference is 5 degrees. Yeah, so that's the moniker. That's the level which was taken when you read again books on this. So that's all. Through a building design, you can only bring that difference. 5 degrees. If it's 35 outside, it will be 30 inside. And you should feel comfortable.
Okay.
But our lifestyles have changed.
Okay.
Yeah. Our eating habits have changed.
Yes.
Our wearing habits have changed.
Fair.
Yeah. And with all that, we require much cooler interiors.
Okay.
Plus, through the urban heat island and other effects, the outside temperatures have also gone higher. So, a building designer can only do this much. A lot of it is the way occupants behave within. So, we've designed and we have issues. We've designed for without active air conditioning in the buildings. We got pretty good ratings, but we had to change. They had to put air conditioning because the people who were using it demanded it.
So the responsibility.
They are traveling in cars for 2 hours to reach this place in 18 degrees centigrade. And they're wearing jeans and thick clothes and they get out and they want it.
So the end user rules and they demand it.
So how much is the society ready to change? Accept and change.
Hopefully tomorrow when I become a teacher, I can change something, right? So if I were to approach change of how architectural education of sustainable approaches and practices are taught, I would want to change from the definitions to the practices to the mindfulness around it, correct? But where does the process of teaching sustainable architecture mindfully even start?
It's so, well, this conundrum will remain. It will not change. It will not totally vanish. What you as teachers would do is you should have time to study and tell students to look up these examples and look at it. You yourself should look at it critically. So we have these students doing, what do they call? Case study.
Yeah.
And the case studies are just slapping together pictures and some plans, and they will write to the architect and say, give me plans. But there is no critical study of it. Neither does the teacher do a critical study with the student and say, let's see it. Let's see the context, let's see the design, let's see the process. And sometimes it's okay not to talk to the architect, but just study. And that's how we were studying earlier. We couldn't approach Louis Kahn or Corbusier, but you are studying their buildings and you're understanding them. So it's the same. So I think a lot would be that the teachers also have to engage in the issues with the students. And teacher has to be also a student at the same time. It cannot be a teacher-student relationship at all.
It has to be a learner.
And what I see, because through my experience, yes, I didn't work in an office, which I felt that I should have worked. It would have helped me how to conduct an office, but I don't think 5 years of college kind of makes you confident enough to start a practice. You have to work for 1 or 2 years somewhere and learn the nuances of an office, because in the educational institute, and which should be that way, is where you are given to work on ideas.
Fair.
And that should be your prerogative, that how do you break from the mold. But whereas when you come to a practice, there are a lot more compulsions.
Okay.
Yeah, there are compulsions of cost, compulsions of aspirations, compulsions of taste, compulsion of sight, so many other things come.
Yeah.
which need not burden the student. So this 2 years should be where you learn that, and then you should start practicing, and it helps. And you also with that get into a mode, because I think the study of architecture is also very tough, so you get very tired. You get into a mode of being a lifelong learner.
Okay. So you talk about compulsions. Compulsions come into picture through laws. Like I have to follow laws when I.
Yeah.
Compulsions come into pictures through winds of site. Compulsions come into picture through my climatic conditions of the site. Binding all of this together is a person who wants to design sustainably. So he approaches certifications like LEED, GRIHA, and
Start
these.
saying she. So there will be more women architects.
She. So she starts approaching the parameters and the compulsions of certifications like LEED and GRIHA. And I want to understand, are they ensuring comprehensive sustainability or are they commercializing the process of sustainability?
Yeah, but you don't have to be that very critical. Those LEED and GRIHA give you a base to look at it and design. If the client is wanting the ratings, yes, you will have to follow them. Okay, and you will have to work at it and follow them and give them those numbers. But otherwise, if you read LEED and GRIHA, and if you're going to design, you can design sustainable buildings without having to look at getting some ratings. They're just another platform telling you these are different
Approaches.
stages
Yeah.
and different parameters which you should use to think you're doing sustainable architecture for you, to help you. They're guiding.
When they become the standard norms for commercial architecture, the function, which happens at a large scale, a very large scale. And that is where now we start differentiating between architects.
Between?
Architects. Right? There are architects who associate themselves with one category, and then there are architects who associate themselves with another category. And there's this huge divide that happens in the industry because of the kind of work you do, the kind of attitude you have towards these certifications. It just becomes too big of a deal, I feel, that ideally sustainability, it's a very basic thing about carbon footprint. Carbon footprint. You calculate the carbon footprint you generated, you will be generating, and you will understand exactly how sustainable you are living. But with these certifications coming into place, it feels like a lot of architects have just they make sure to get the certifications, and then it's out. Their responsibility about sustainability is done. So they just focus on meeting that bare minimum and they leave it there.
But imagine, Nikita, if even that wasn't there,
Of course,
so that would have been worse. Okay, so these are small steps, very difficult steps. It's not so easy to change things, and especially in the commercial sector. Okay, so if you have to change, these are good crutches to take, and small changes happen. I understand completely, and you guys are in extremely fast mode. You can't help it. You are also seeing the devastation in really short time. Okay, if we saw the difference in temperature in 10 years, you're seeing it in 2 years. Yeah, and you really know what climate change would do to you, to your future.
There's such a huge difference in our childhood.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's very scary. Scary for us too, but we are like really old and we say, okay, fine, another 10, 12 years we'll somehow manage, and we are out. Yeah. But yes, what are we leaving for future? And we're always worried about you all. And how do you practice? So you are seeing you. I'm happy that you're critical. And it is you who have to start demanding that can GRIHA and LEED change? And if you saw the first LEED parameters, they were extremely Western, first world. They changed. They changed with Indian context. So GRIHA evolved out of that. When you work,
Appreciate.
no, even in your own space when you work, You should work with your convictions and not follow a certain parameters laid
Yeah.
down.
Your
You
own,
don't have your own
your own
conviction, yeah.
principles.
Parameters is just a guideline for us to keep in.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
it's a
And we have to have. So, this I think should be my next question to you. When you're teaching students about sustainability, and like you said, that you should have your own ideas and your own calculations. Yes, how do we impart this to the students? How do we raise students in the 5-year course that they build those kinds of ethics, that they understand what to follow, how to guide it? Agreed, we taught climate. Agreed, we taught it in bits and pieces, saying, you've got the sun path, you've got your wind directions, you've got your humidity levels. Now you put all of this together and you try to design. But how do we make sure that they are capable of adding those things together?
You have to provide that enabling environment. You have to say you have doubts too. You're not somebody with all answers. So, as a teacher, you are also burdened with the same set of questions that a student would be having.
Okay.
And you, as a teacher, is going to be learning and finding answers or ideas and sharing it with the students.
So we connect
Constantly. You are never
free of that responsibility
free
to
of
learn.
the responsibility after 5 o'clock. With architecture and with creative field, it is never, the thinking is never 9 to 5. We are not saying that you have to sit and draw or create a design or anything. We're saying you have to be thinking.
But what next?
What next is to be questioning the society. Why is our education so expensive? You need architecture in society. You like medicine, like engineering, and like many other subjects, you also need this. It's important for the society to have good buildings, good spaces, good cities, good ecosystem. And besides all that, why are a simple education so expensive? Are we asking these questions to our politicians, to others? Why are our schools so sad? Why don't we have teachers in school which inspire you? Why isn't teaching a profession to aspire to? Yeah. Right now in
Why is it looked
architecture
down?
college, you teach because you not get a
Job.
or you don't have a design job,
Yes.
which is not fair.
Not the reason to
But
teach.
you have extremely great teachers who love to teach for the sake of teaching. But they're very few and
There's
far
also
between.
another issue that I've observed. When I was in college, I saw that there were a lot more visiting faculty who would come and teach us. And that is how we associated ourselves with the outside world. Today, there are a lot less visiting faculty. Most of the subjects are being taught by in-house faculty, and they do not have their own practice, or at least they don't have a very good, well-sustaining practice. They just have something for the heck of it. And as a result, the students have no idea what's happening outside. And they're living in a very impractical world, and their belief system shuts down. And like I said, the story goes on where they believe that they cannot design, they cannot create in the world because architecture outside is just very monotonous and mundane.
Yeah, because it's very tough. Architecture outside is extremely tough, and it requires deep passion to manage that toughness and to work in that. You have to be in the flow. You have to almost just enjoy what's happening.
Since our students are embarking on a very tough profession, what advice would you give them to better embolden them?
So I keep saying that, which we were during lunch we were talking, is not to compare yourself with kids who have come out and have done management or software and they're just earning
Decent.
huge amount of it. I don't know whether that is decent, yeah, IT or anything. But I would really like architects also to compare themselves with people who work with passion. Let's just say the filmmakers or the photographers. I'm sure they're not earning as much as an IT professional is earning, but it's a passion. Or I've seen these young people in wildlife. I'm amazed with their passion. And so you have to really pursue something which brings you happiness. And you have to bring happiness into a larger scale of aspiration than financial. Yeah.
That's why I have to.
So, and if we start doing it, we will do good work. We will do good life. We will live a
Better.
good life.
Yeah.
What the fresh architects are really looking for is for an economically viable, feasible life that they can pay for the house that they want to live in, because real estate on one side is so expensive. And on the other hand, the same industry, you're working for it, architecture, is not paying you enough to just sustain yourself in that same area. And they get worried, and that is where I think most of these fresh architects branch out, go to builders, or they start doing other juniors projects, and they start taking money for that, or they start making 3D models, and that is how they sustain. Because one 3D model and you get paid 30-40 minimum, right? For one 3D with a few renders, like just 10 or 11 or 15 renders, and you have 30,000, which is like 2 nights work or 5 nights work. It's very easy for someone who's been raised in their environment, who knows how to work with softwares. So for when money is attracting them into so many different directions, how do we expect them to keep their passions alive and keep going forth even when they don't have food to put on the table or a house to?
Yeah, but at the same time, if you compare yourself with a mason who does such much more harder work and gets even lesser than you,
Yeah, we can totally.
even after the same person has worked for 5 years, okay? So let's don't compare. But if you get that 30-40,000 and say next 2 months you work on a design, you figure out your balance. And it's wonderful now that you have these possibilities. But even in our days, we had these possibilities. We didn't make 3D models, we made perspectives. We rendered with pencils and made money. People did that. So, yes, Vinod Gupta has written a great article in Architecture Live that you cannot be doing only one work. Then and even now. Architecture is a very broad subject, and so you can learn a lot of things. You can design a furniture, you can go out and do a painting, a mural for somebody, and you should find out what are the, yeah, just get creative, just apply yourself in multiple ways. Yeah, and our architect students usually come from higher middle class, and we have this in India, the caste and class distinction, which says that I would not do this work. How many of you go and work as a carpenter or as a, you're one of them, really?
Rarely.
Carpenter labor, I've done labor work, I have broken sanitary ware by my hands
But everybody can do that.
everybody can, they choose not to.
Yeah. So why don't you do that?
Is it the conditioning?
It's a conditioning. You're right. It's a conditioning. And then it's also that you look down upon
yeah.
certain. So if we change our attitude, and for that I think we have to be
Patient.
really getting out of our boundaries which our society here has created with caste and
And I
class.
think again pedagogy can step in over here where.
So how much of the pedagogy talks to you about Ambedkar, about Dalit lives? They don't. How much of it talks to you about the lives of your plumbers and your
Social, like
what
people,
do you pay them as salaries? We don't. Society being talked in our colleges, and it wasn't so. Huh? In the beginning, there was a lot of talk on it. We have, I think, since '91 when we opened the economy, these thoughts and these aspects have been diluted in our colleges, and also it's happened because the fees have gone very high. Then again, only a niche people who can afford are coming into it, and then they expect a certain lifestyle. For that, they expect a certain salary. Whether they have the capability in terms of being able to do or required skill, but the expectations are high. So these are the conundrums. So sometimes it's the small schools which do better because the kids do not have that much of expectation and they're ready to work. They have the hunger. Many students don't have the hunger.
A lot of students also are from the same background, so they have that mindset that, oh, I have my own practice anyways, I don't have to worry much about it. Things will continue the way they always do, right? My father's practice. And also I think institutions should encourage students to interact more with workers on site. So maybe more site visits, more interactions where they get together with the workers, they build it with the workers. That is what changed my perspective towards site work. But that happened after college, not in college. Had I experienced that in my 5-year course, I would be a much different person when I stepped out of college.
So we have to bring in the college a mason to give a lecture, a plumber to come in.
So, you know,
But many of these things, sustainable or not sustainable, cannot happen without the people at the side and you knowing them.
yeah, and you valuing them.
Hmm?
What impact do you wish to create on the world through your initiatives and your perspective of your work?
Again, it's the idea. And I'm very happy that the idea within my own lifetime has been taken forward.
Okay.
So,
What do you mean by that?
a lot of it is to do with the city of Bangalore and the constraints and the people of Bangalore gave to us to follow this path.
Okay.
So, let's say building with earth. When we started, we built our own home in 95, and that's when we started building with earth as the way we would use a material. Okay, it would have, let's say, about sometimes in late 80s, Karnataka Housing Board had made what it called the largest mud colony in Asia or the world or something like that. Okay. But by 90s, it was crumbling, falling down, and nobody was building with earth anymore. And we came to our plot of land and we saw the lovely soil. We said we'll build with earth. And we built. We made a basement, which I'd never designed earlier. I'd never learned about how to build a basement in college. No idea of construction of a basement. We learned and we designed. A lot of errors, a lot of things I would really like to redo, which you can't do because building is standing on that. But we built. And we kept saying, we're building with earth because we are getting the material, which would be at least 60% for the construction of wall from below your feet. What could be the closest material? Gandhi said 5-mile radius.
Yeah.
And others are saying 50 in lead or GRIHA or something, but here we're saying right below your feet because there's no biological activity.
Okay.
Okay, so you take that material and build. And Bangalore soil is hugely amenable to such. The soil is not great for making of bricks because it has less clay, it's more sandy. So it's great. And now in Bangalore, there must be at least 12,000 buildings.
Brick.
In a city, the largest number of buildings with, we'll call it stabilized earth buildings, is Bangalore. In India, it's in Bangalore.
Wow.
But we don't talk about it. But there are about 200 architects practicing
Not
building with earth.
celebrated at all.
Yes, that is what we have to celebrate. So we're very happy about it. We are working with rainwater harvesting. People said, what is this? Connecting pipes to an underground tank. But now that is a resilience objective in the
Correct.
design. And that happened because we were building homes where there was no water supply or sanitation. So how do you design for sanitation? How do you design? All that has been a learning after studying architecture. It wasn't there. It wasn't there in the
Classroom.
curriculum. So what I still say is that if it wasn't there and we did it, it can still be continued.
Yeah.
But now it's possible because at that time it was very difficult to find a whole Earth Review magazine and study it and do that. Or we did courses. We went to China, we went to Sweden to study rainwater harvesting or to study eco-sand, to study other kinds of sanitation. We did all that workshop. But now it's possible. You have everything available and you can do all the stuff and you have various choices, more gas board of choices of these things. So, and that has come into the mainstream. You were asking how will sustainable practices come into the mainstream, but that's in mainstream now. Mr. Puri was asked, like, you're also talking about Adobe and Chitra is also talking about Adobe. And he said, she's been doing for 30 years. I've started now, but this is the way forward. So everybody is doing it. Now, there is no question. That's why I'm saying remove the label.
Okay.
This is the way forward. Everyone is realizing, and they have their own language. But obviously, everyone is confronted with what's going to happen in future. The climate change is not kind of shielding anyone.
It's inevitable.
It's an inevitable. I can't design in Rajasthan without thinking about the heat ingress. Even if I decide to keep it cool inside with active systems, but still I would like to reduce the energy consumed by the active system because it costs you.
Yeah.
So I have to design. So all these are now the rigor.
Yeah.
It is not something different.
I think from the start point of the conversation where you questioned the need of questioning sustainability and definition to now circling back to it, I think you have rounded up and made a nice circle of that conversation. So with that note, thank you so much, ma'am. I hope I did her
Thank
decent.
you both for this lovely chat.
Thank you so much, all our lovely friends and young professionals, experienced professionals, tuning in for this. This is Design Dialogues by Musing Spatial Experiences. We are exploring architectural careers in futurist India. Hang on, because we are shifting design perspectives. Stay tuned, stay happy, stay smiling.